ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to 3 ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. You're with the Grace and ASEAN Dailies, where we deliver news from Southeast Asia. So as usual, on today it's Friday, and just before we continue our news commentary, that will be more. Our first segment will be more on the political and also current affairs around Southeast Asia. So stay tuned. Okay, so what's the first news that we have today? Well, it's about the leader in Myanmar, and of course we're talking about Aung San Suu Kyi. So Miss Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy Party, they won the majority in both houses in the November polls. They chose that Mr. Man Wing Kyang Tan, who is about 63, to serve as upper house chairman. So basically her ally picked as upper house chairman. So Suu Kyi's Myanmar's new popularity elected the upper house of parliament voted in its opening session yesterday, and a full ally of Aung San Suu Kyi to serve as chairman. So this man is a member of the Karen ethnic minority group and also grandson of the cabinet minister who was assassinated alongside as the leader father, which was back in 1947. So she sort of pushed the message of the national reconciliation that was just a few days ago, and the choice that she had the representative from the ethnic minority and also army-backed party as parliamentary speakers in a chamber dominated by her allies, of course. So NLD they won about 80% of elected seats in November votes, and then that is up to the power as Myanmar's ruling party after decades of the struggle. So she still has to, of course, share her power with the army that is still controlling the country, especially 3 security ministries and also quarter of the seats in the parliament, giving the right to block any changes this junta made the constitution. Well, when you think about the country Myanmar, a lot of people are hoping for a change, especially when it comes to the government system, from the military government system to democracy. But of course, it takes some time, and like I mentioned before, the power of army in that country still remains more or less the same. So the first sitting of the parliament took place. It took place already this week, and as the country goes through a drawn-out transition that started with the election, of course, and that will go on until Suu Kyi's party, NLD government, officially begins its term in April this year. So, but apart from her close tie with Win Mint, who was appointed Speaker for the lower house, both chambers nominated prominent politicians representing the country's large ethnic minorities. And we're talking about Kachin, Karen, and Rakhine states. And according to her, she mentioned that she believes that the people elected by the parliament represent national reconciliation as well. And when this party was facing difficulties, ethnic parties supported them. So they don't forget to be grateful to their allies. But at the same time, when you think of that whole the speech and then the actions so far, Myanmar, especially when it comes to Aung San Suu Kyi's party, she was pretty quiet when it comes to the human rights or minorities treatment, especially towards the Rohingya the community. So it is quite, I will say, perhaps a contradicting or the question that how are they gonna face this problem when it comes to certain minority group, even though they did support this particular group NLD in Myanmar for the past decades, but there should be a clear communication, I guess clear sort of feedback and then give and take sort of actions that it is more transparent to the public, because with her sentence saying about minorities, they're the one who really did support when it comes to certain situations, and also that will also represent the national reconciliation. However, there should be really a progress to make a greater country especially after April this year. So a lot of expectation and hopes are there in Myanmar, and all we can say from the neighboring countries is all the best. But we are also there to help the country if there are any problems, as long as the country comes up to front with the transparency. And the next news is about, according to USA, it says Southeast Asia Summit is not anti-China. The summit with Southeast Asian leaders that, of course, President Barack Obama is hosting later this month is, according to what is reported, is not anti-China. So what's really happening there is the meeting will bring the leaders from ASEAN countries at the Californian resort of Sunnyland that will be taking place very, very soon, somewhere in the mid-February. So, like it was mentioned repeatedly before, this summit is not about China. It's about US and ASEAN. This is according to the US Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia, Daniel Russell. And that was expressed during the interview with other news agency. So he repeatedly mentioned again and again that this is not about China. This is not anti-China also. So they'll be more focusing on the bolstering the ASEAN as counterpoint to Chinese regional power. And according to them, that this meeting, particular summit, will be the culmination of a 7+ year investment that the United States has made first and foremost in the Asia-Pacific region, but at the same time also in ASEAN in particularly. And then that will also demonstrate that rebalance has reached crushing this altitude. And when it comes to Obama's interest towards Southeast Asia, he has visited a few times, including the recent visit in the ASEAN Summit in November. There were lots of opinion and also ideas that he has expressed towards the Southeast Asian, and a lot of questions also were there to ask him regarding certain issues. So several ASEAN states are embroiled in the increasingly bitter spat with China, especially when it comes to South China Sea. We've been, during ASEAN, have been discussing and reporting about this particular issue over past few months already. And according to the US, they mentioned that it takes no position on ownership of these various reefs and the territory under this dispute, but they also insist of this freedom of navigation in the vital shipping lane must be maintained at the same time. So this is the challenges that Southeast Asia or ASEAN mainly or particularly the disputes over the land features and maritime entitlement in South China Sea. It's not a zero-sum game, but this is not a proxy war between the China and the United States for sure. But of course, when it comes to challenges, we talk about challenges to Southeast Asia. This is a huge question, and that could be a direct challenge. Whether the countries in the region and then all those claimants in the South China Sea, particularly China, will be guided by universal principles and the rule of the law. So, Russell insisted that Asia was not certainly the battleground for big power competition yet. It'll be nice to see how US is gonna help Vietnam. Especially we did mention about a few reports that how US wanted to help out when it comes to South China Sea, and then China was gaining more anger towards the USA. So this particular summit, they just want to focus more on the bolstering ASEAN as a counterpoint to Chinese regional power, but hopefully that is not misunderstood by public or other organizations that this summit will be anti-China. And moving on to the next news, which is about Japan as well as China. Well, apparently Japan and China, they do wrestle for this ascendancy in Southeast Asia railway grade game. Luang Namtha in the northern Laos is, they have the sort of wildlife reserve popular with the backpackers. But in the future, it seems like it may become a vital geopolitical pivot point. So the northern corridor to the Chinese metropolis of Kunming intersects with the routes east that leads to Myanmar and west into Vietnam and south through Laos to Thailand. So Malaysia and Singapore are also a part of the southern part. So when you calculate, it's been about 15 years, but back then this main economic activity appeared to gathering rice and bundles of firewood at the same time. So this whole 6 billion Kunming Vietnam section is part of the China Pan-Asia's plan, and apparently 3 lines that's fanning from the Kunming across the Southeast Asia, and also that is converging in Singapore about 3,900 kilometers to the south. So the Laos section is the initial center route, and which is very prominent and very important at this point, with the western and eastern legs, of course. So the South China Sea and the Bay of Bengal will be the shores of this whole network, the routes basically. And from China's point of view, Beijing sees this whole project as a sort of soft power export, and they have this plan for many more around the world. And when it comes to Japan, they are also too very eager and very ambitious in competing for China's backyard. So when it comes to determine these rivals between China and Japan, the economic considerations are subordinated to prestige and influence at the same time. So they'll be sort of like influenced by China and a bit from Japan as well. And of course, this decision of this Vientiane to buy Chinese was never in doubt from the first place. But still, they negotiated low about interest rate is about 3% only. Though the mortgaging of these 5 potash mines to Chinese leaders has stoked grumbles over this transparency. And there's also the bidding going on in Indonesia and Thailand, and the bids has been going on even livelier than before. So in fact, the Bangkok, the junta also strongly supporting Beijing. They want to be a hub in China's this artery, this one of the network there, and it plans a spur to Burma along the infamous that railway route as well. And like it was mentioned before, Japan, it still has this long-standing Thai presence and also bid tenaciously until the very end. Well, while now it's signed with Beijing, the $10 billion US dollars deal did not go smoothly because, given China's affluence, the Thai government has asked China to invest even more, a lot more, with a lower interest rate. And of course, when it comes to the dealing with the financial issues, the government was a bit disappointed by Thai's suggestion by lowering the train speed instead. So it looks like there are quite a lot of things going on, and of course, the other countries, which is Indonesia, they also cancelled the plan for this high-speed rail line. So, well, this is just additional news that to this one, that Indonesia also has unexpectedly dumped much expected plans of this first high-speed railway in favor of slower and cheaper rail option. However, it is sort of a blow to Japan and China, who have been really competing each other to win this construction. Well, when it comes to this railway, it is very ambitious, and it can help it can give a lot of benefits to surrounding countries. And then that's one of the reasons why Japan and then China have been competing. This high-speed train project is also a very promising project. However, by having this, not many countries seem to be really participating, especially when they want to negotiate by having lower interest rate, but then asking for more investment in this project. So this is certainly going on. Maybe it may not progress any further, but it looks like at the same time China has upper hand up till this point, and Indonesia is also has decided not to take sides at this point. So, well, it is a soft war, in fact, between Japan and China. However, this ambitious project, I wish that it can go on to have more developed railway station, and also to be able to build greater network among this region. Well, that's it for our news on the political and current affairs of Southeast Asia. But stay tuned, we'll be back to discuss more on the social culture and trend around Southeast Asia.